counsel, members of the jury, may it please the court. You can't prevent what you can't predict. Ms. Ishmael wants for you to believe that Hayden Duran should have known that her 11-year-old child would accidentally shoot his best friend. But what you heard today is that what happened on August 18, 2010 was just a tragic accident that occurred when two children were left home alone with a gun. Now, you heard a lot of facts today, but I'd like to highlight some of the things that you didn't hear. You didn't hear today that this accident happened at the Duran's home. You didn't hear that it was Hayden Duran who stored a combination to a gun safe in a place that was accessible to children. And you didn't hear that it was Hayden Duran's gun that caused this tragedy. What you did hear is that on August 18, 2010, Miss Park left Sydney and Jesse home alone with her gun. You heard that this gun was easily accessible to children, as was the combination to get into the safe. And together, the two children easily gained access to this gun, and they began to play with it. And while they were playing with it, Sydney Park was killed. Now, as the defense, we are not here to make light of the tragedy that occurred on August 18th of 2010. We are not here to minimize the loss and the pain suffered by the Park family. But members of the jury, it is crucial in today's case that we separate fact from emotion. Now, the plaintiff has brought one count of negligent parental supervision against Hayden Duran for the wrongful death of Sydney Park. And in doing so, they've assumed a burden of proof. This means that they had to prove to you by a preponderance of the evidence that but for the negligence of Hayden Duran, Sydney Park would still be alive. Members of the jury, the plaintiff failed to meet their burden today because they've overlooked a more likely scenario, that this accident was unforeseeable by Hayden Duran. Now, the plaintiff wants for you to solely focus on the negligence of Hayden Duran, but members of the jury, you must consider the possibility that had the combination to the gun safe been stored in a locked filing cabinet, had the children been supervised on August 18, 2010, or had the gun been moved out of the children's reach, this tragedy would have never occurred. The plaintiff failed to meet their burden today. Now, don't let the plaintiff confuse you. They had to prove more than what they told you today, and if you look in your complaint, you will see that. They had to prove to you by a preponderance of the evidence that Hayden Duran should have known of the need to prevent her child from causing bodily harm to another. But members of the jury, you heard from Hayden Duran herself, and she told you about the number of times that she told Jesse that guns were dangerous. And if you look in front of you, you'll see that Jesse Duran said that he understood. Now, they tried to bring forth Dr. Solo to tell you that Jesse Duran exhibited warning signs that Hayden Duran should have been aware of. But members of the jury, Dr. Solo is a trained professional. She has medical training to look for these warning signs, and you heard from Dr. Solo himself that Hayden Duran doesn't have this kind of training. They want for you to believe that because Hayden Duran saw this cartoon of Jesse Duran holding a Nerf gun, that she should make the connection that Jesse Duran would then go over to his best friend's house, hold a real gun, and shoot a real person. It is unreasonable to say that Hayden Duran should have made that connection. It is also unreasonable to say that because Jesse Duran got into a tussle on the playground in 5th grade, that Hayden Duran should have known of the need to prevent Jesse Duran from going over to Sydney Park's house, holding a real gun, and shooting it. Members of the jury, even if you believe the plaintiff met their burden here, they still had to prove to you by a preponderance of the evidence that Hayden Duran failed to reasonably control her child. Members of the jury, again, you heard from Hayden Duran about the number of times that she warned Jesse about the dangers of guns. She told Jesse, guns aren't toys, and you need to stay away from them. And to that, Jesse said that he understood. You heard from Hayden Duran that she told Jesse the day before the incident, the morning of the incident, and even after she left that morning, she told Jesse Duran again that guns aren't toys and that she wanted to make sure no one got hurt. And Jesse said that he understood. Now, I understand that the plaintiff brought forth a statement made by Jesse Duran that said that no one told him about the dangers of real guns, but you have evidence here that Hayden Duran did. Now, the plaintiff wants to base their case off of the fact that Hayden Duran bought military video games for her son. But should every parent assume that because their 11-year-old son is interested in military video games, that they'll go out and shoot somebody? The plaintiff failed to meet their burden here. And members of the jury, they still had to prove to you by a preponderance of the evidence that Hayden Duran's actions were the direct and proximate cause of Sydney Park's death. But what you heard today is that if not for the negligence of Miss Park, Sydney Park would still be alive. You heard from Dr. DeRosa today, and he told you that the Parks made 3 errors in storing their gun. He told you that the creation of the written combination was so easily guessable, just the combination of their 3 birthdays. And he also told you that they stored the combination to that safe in an unlocked filing cabinet that was accessible to Sydney. Now, they tried to tell you that the Gallucci brand of the safe is the toughest safe in the world, but members of the jury, even if you have the toughest safe in the world, if you have the combination to that safe, you can gain access to what's inside. And you heard Andy Park herself tell you that she saw Sydney going through the filing cabinet that held that combination, and she didn't move it. And Dr. DeRosa also told you that the storage of the gun was improper. He told you that Andy Park stored her gun in a place that was accessible to children. You heard Andy Park herself tell you that Sydney asked where this gun was, and she correctly said that she was sure it was in the bedroom, and to that, Andy Park did not move the gun. The plaintiff did not prove that Hayden Duran's actions were the direct cause of Sydney Park's death. As the defense, we understand that the Park family is looking for answers. We understand their need to find someone to blame. But members of the jury, Hayden Duran is not the one to blame. What happened on August 18th was completely unpredictable by Hayden Duran. And you can't prevent what you can't predict. Because of this, we ask that you find Ms. Hayden Duran not liable.